First off, what is your affiliation with the school?
My affiliation is as an instructor. I've been in a number of different positions through the years, but the primary position has been as a faculty member, an instructor.
What is that position?
My area?
Yes.
I was hired here initially to teach and direct the criminal justice program. Did that for 15 years. Then I moved into the social science area, and I've taught political science and sociology since the late 1980s or thereabouts. I also directed the independent study program for probably 10, 12 years. I was a faculty student advisor for 6 or 7 years. And then I've served as an assistant dean for the liberal arts division, served as a social science coordinator several times. But my main responsibility has been teaching.
And when did you first come to Yavapai?
I was hired in January of 1974. It was mid-year. My predecessor, Frank Budd, had obtained a more lucrative position in California, directing a police academy in Riverside, California, so he left at the end of fall semester. College was in a bit of a bind, and so they put out an ad trying to fill a position, and I just happened to find the ad at the right time, and things clicked, and so came in January of 1974.
And what brought you here?
A job. I'd finished my master's degree in sociology 6 months before, been looking for a job, a teaching job in the community college system somewhere for about 18 months, but the job market was tight in sociology. Not a lot of opportunities. But things were just opening up in the criminal justice field. Federal government was pouring lots of money in to fight the war against crime. That was the big thing from 1968 through the 1970s. And so they poured a lot of money into education to create criminal justice programs where police officers could be trained, probation officers, correctional officers, and so forth. And my field, I had an emphasis in crime and delinquency, deviant behavior, as part of my sociology program. And it worked out that was close enough for the college at least, to open the position as director of their law enforcement program here at the college. And so came here for the job.
What kind of background did you have before coming here?
Limited. Pretty limited. I had the key requirement that they needed, and that was a master's degree. And I cited my practical experience being that I had almost 4 years in the military doing investigative work. My job in Vietnam was as an advisor to their police system. Pretty flimsy background, but met the key requirement, which is a master's degree, and I guess they figured that I could pretty well learn what else I needed to learn to direct the program here, and they hired me for a 1-semester time, and I was hired by Dr. Joe Russo, who was the Dean of Instruction at the time, and Dr. Dick Boone, who was the Dean for Occupational Education. And when I left the interview, Dr. Russo had said, we want to be clear that we're just hiring you for this spring semester, and there's no guarantee after that. And I was concerned about that. And as I walked out of the interview, Dick Boone pulled me aside and said, don't let that bother you a great deal. If you prove to us that you can do the job in this semester, I can guarantee you that you'll have a contract come fall. So it was a bit of a leap of faith, trusting that they would, honor a commitment, and I believed I could do the job, and so we signed on, and the rest is history.
What kind of schooling did you have?
After high school, I went to Dixie College for 2 years to get my associate degree. That's in southern Utah. From there, I went on to Brigham Young University, got my bachelor's degree, major emphasis in sociology. Went on to do a year of graduate work at Brigham Young in the master's program. Uncle Sam interceded, took me away for 4 years. And I came back after getting out of the service, went back to BYU. I just had a thesis to finish and did that over the next year and completed the master's degree.
What kind of expectations did you have coming into Yavapai?
Well, I was married. I had 3 small children at the time, and so I needed a job. I needed to be able to have some money to put food on the table. And my goal or expectation was to teach, and to teach at the community college level. I wanted to teach sociology and political science. That was my minor area. But there weren't many openings in those fields around the country. And yet there were a lot of openings coming up in the criminal justice field. And so I saw this as an opportunity to get my foot in the door, to get a teaching position at a 2-year college. And so Yavapai was going to be my starting point. And our plan was to stay here for a couple of years, 2-3 years, something like that, so that I could have on my resume that I had teaching experience. And then we planned to move on to greener pastures and so forth. But we just fell in love with Prescott. We fell in love with Yavapai College. Realized this was a great place to raise a family, and the family at Yavapai College was so accepting and so good. We just have stayed. It's been great.
So those expectations were met?
And exceeded. Yes, very definitely.
So what all classes have you taught?
In the criminal justice field, we had a curriculum of about 15 to 18 courses, so that I was teaching 5 or 6 courses every semester, and the next semester they would be a different set of courses, and over a 2-year time period we'd eventually teach all of the courses in that curriculum. And so it was rather demanding. You had so many different courses to prepare for and areas to keep up in. I was the only full-time person. I had 4 adjuncts that assisted me. And I did that for 15 years. And then I moved to the social science side of the college, where I taught sociology courses, political science courses, and that's basically it.
Have you taken any classes from Yavapai?
Have I taken any classes here at Yavapai? That is a good question. I don't think that I have taken any classes at Yavapai. A computer class, maybe? I don't think so. I don't think I've taken a class at Yavapai. All my kids have. All 7 of them come through here and so forth, but I don't think I have. Even my wife's taken some classes here.
What kind of outside factors have you seen that affected the college that in turn affected you?
One of the biggest factors initially in the criminal justice program was the drying up of federal monies in the late 70s and early 80s, particularly as a result of the economic conditions of the early 80s and the Reagan cutting back on social programs and so forth. So money began drying up in the criminal justice field. And I saw that immediately with the drop in students. Students in the 70s could get paid to come to major in criminal justice as pre-service students or as in-service students. And so that provided a lot of students. And as soon as that money began to dry up, the students began to dry up as well. And so I went from a program that had 160 students registered every semester to having only 30 or 40 students, and it was difficult to get the classes to make. And so in the 80s, mid-80s, we were cutting back significantly in the criminal justice program. And eventually the police certification portion of the program actually took over. The local agencies were using Yavapai College to train and get peace officer certification, which we were able to provide. And where in the 70s that was about 15 or 20% of our enrollments, the rest were our degree students. By the mid-1980s, the police certification program had become 75% of our enrollments, and the degree students were a much smaller portion. So that was an outside factor that was very significant on us, and we had to adjust.
Have you seen any other challenging times?
Oh, yeah, we've had a lot of challenging times. I was here through the difficult times in the late 80s and early 90s with our president, Paul Walker. Eventually led to his departure, and of course I've been here through the difficult times of the Doreen Daly administration, eventually her departure. I've been here through, I think, 4 or 5 NCA accreditation experiences, and those are always challenging because it's extra work and you put in lots of time outside of teaching and the normal administrative responsibilities to address the demands of the accreditation process. So those have been some big things as well. We've had 2 bond elections. Had the bond election in the late 80s that resulted in the building of our performance hall, and then the bond election in November of 2000 that did the major renovation of this campus and most of the others, and building of new buildings like the computer library center and so forth. So yeah, there have been a lot of major things like that that have come about during my tenure here.
How have you seen the student demographics change? Has there been any change?
I'd have to say there's not been a lot of change. When I first came, there were a fair number of Native American students, and we still have a fair number of Native American students, so I don't know that the ratio has changed a great deal. Very few black students in the 70s and early 80s. What there were all athletes. We still don't have many blacks here. Hispanics, perhaps a few more now. In my field, in criminal justice, most of my students were males in the 70s and 80s, but as the requirements for hiring in the policing fields began to change, I found that by the mid-80s I had as many females in my classes as males, so that was a rather dramatic change with regards to gender over a 10-year time period. But we still had, probably the same ratio of males to females on campus generally. I think there's quite a few more females than males typically.
What about age?
Age. We had a special program for retirement folks in the 70s and 80s, and it attracted a lot of retirement age people. I didn't get a lot in my criminal justice program, but when I moved over to the social science field, I saw quite a few more taking sociology and political science classes. But we kind of integrated those retirement courses into the larger curriculum, and so maybe we've had a little bit of a drop-off. I haven't seen the statistics, but I would guess perhaps in retirement folks. But that certainly is a constituency out there that should be tapped into, because there's a lot.
Other than the obvious physical changes, what other big changes have you noticed?
A lot of technology changes. I came in with my manual typewriter and doing hard copy of everything, and then we moved to electric typewriters. I remember when my division chair said I was going to get an IBM Selectric typewriter that had a memory capability so it could even store things in it, and I thought that was the greatest thing there ever was. Couldn't imagine anything could be any better than that. And then eventually we got the computer, and the computer, had so much more capability than the IBM Selectric typewriter. So from that standpoint, there's been a dramatic change in that technology. I was a blackboard man with chalk. Now we have everything as whiteboards with your erase markers. I was an overhead person, so I always needed an overhead projector in my class and the transparencies that go with them. And now we transitioned to PowerPoint with computers and so forth. We used to do everything with paperwork, hard copy paperwork. You'd always check your mail every day because there was always, this stream of paperwork coming in, and now it's all done by email on computer. And so those have been some, significant changes. In the instructional field, I've been very fortunate. Yavapai College has provided me significant advantages of being able to diversify. In the mid-'80s, the college hired a man by the name of Paul Newman to run distance education. And Paul Newman came to me and said, Hinton, you have a couple of courses in political science that would probably be needed in northern Arizona, and we can reach students as far north as Page and down toward Phoenix as far as Black Canyon City and Baghdad. He said, we can put you through an audio link on a telephone line, and you can have students in a lot of these little communities within the county and within Coconino County. And at that time, we had a contract to provide the first 2 years of education through Coconino County. And so for 5 or 6 years, I taught several political science classes through an audio link. And I would have a live class in front of me of anywhere from 15 to 20 students. And then I would have little pockets all around the state. Baghdad, Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, Cottonwood, Flagstaff, Tuba City, and all of these places were linked up by simply the telephone. And so I would start with my class at 4 o'clock, say, and I would call the switchboard and I would say, bring in my students. And they would link me up to all of these locations. And they would have little microphones in the rooms where they were located, where they could hear my voice, and they could speak, and I could hear them. And so in about 1985, I began teaching through that distance delivery method. And then Paul Newman was instrumental in getting the microwave system, which brought about the television, so that we could televise our classes between here and the Verdes. So I began teaching classes where I'd have students in the Verde and students here, like we still do. Let's see, then Paul Newman left. I think he went to do the same sort of thing at NAU, and they brought in a fellow by the name of Ryan Karstens. And Ryan came to me and said, Hinton, you've done a lot of these things with distance delivery, but we've got a new way to deliver. He says, we can deliver classes by cable television. And I'll be darned if I didn't start teaching Introduction to Sociology and American National Government by cable television throughout the county and so forth. It was broadcast over Channel 13, and so I did that for a while. And, of course, now we have online instruction, and I teach more online classes now than I teach live classes. So over the years, I've seen quite a change in the ways that we deliver education.
Do you feel that distance learning is as effective as classroom?
When you're a small place like Baghdad or Ash Fork or Seligman, and your opportunities for higher education are limited, something like those avenues are wonderful. But from an instructor standpoint, my preference is the live class. There's none of these other methods can approach, in my view, the richness and the diversity and so forth of a live class. The other methods allow you to deliver education, but and it works. But my preference is for the live class. I just like to be able to look in the eyes of the students and see them and see their reactions, and I can know much better what's going on in their minds and see how they're reacting to what we're doing and so forth. So that's always my preference.
Can you recall any good or bad experiences or memories that stick out to you?
Oh yeah, there are a lot of memories. Students, you get the huge range of students that have their own needs and desires and skills and abilities, and you try to work with them and help them to be successful, help them to learn. I remember one semester I had a basketball player in my class, and he just came to class. He was always in class, but he didn't do diddly, didn't do a thing. And so when test time came and so forth, he did very poorly. And I gave him an F at the end of the semester. And he came, as soon as he got his grades, he was knocking on my office door and he said, "What's with this? What's with this grade I've gotten?" And I was astounded that he hadn't realized that he was performing at a, such an unsatisfactory level. And so we sat down and we visited about it, and he said, "I'm a good student." And I said, "You weren't in my class. You didn't do anything. You were in class, but you never did anything." And he says, "I'm not this student that this grade says that I'm at." And I just said, "Well, I'm sorry, but you were in my class." And I was astounded then when the next semester, this was a fall semester, the next semester he showed up in my class again. And I thought, oh no, we're going to have to go through this. But he was completely different. I couldn't believe the transformation. I don't know whether that had been a wake-up call for him or not, but he came in to show me that he could succeed in my class. It wasn't the same class. It was a different class, but I used basically the same style and so forth. And he got an A in my class. He applied himself. He was a completely changed student. And when you run into situations like that, it just it's marvelous. That's what adds to this profession that makes it so attractive. And students are different. I had one student in my government class. I use quizzes to encourage students to do the reading, and so the quiz questions are based principally on the reading assignments. And I had it was a spring semester, and I had a little gal. She always sat in the front row, and she, in the first 3 quizzes, she had done terrible on the quizzes. And she came up after the 3rd quiz, and she said, "Mr. Hinton, can you give me a suggestion what I need to do to do better on your quizzes?" And I said, "Well, the quizzes are based on the reading. Are you doing the reading?" And she looked at me and she said, "No, I don't read textbooks." And I said, "Well, there's your answer right there." And she said, I'm a 2nd semester sophomore. I've never read a book since I've been here at Yavapai, and I don't plan to start now." I couldn't believe I was hearing that. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry I can't speak for your other classes, but if you're going to succeed in this class, you're going to have to read." So I was very interested in her score on the next quiz, and it was terrible. It was just like the others. And so I just shrugged it off and thought, this gal hasn't learned. But after that, she was top of the line. I couldn't put a question on a quiz, and I think we had 10 quizzes that semester. I couldn't put a question but what she would have the answer. And so there were 6 more quizzes, and she was top of the line. And we never had another discussion about that during the semester, but the day of the final, she came and took the final, handed it in, and turned to leave. And she got about halfway out of the classroom, and she stopped and turned around, and she said something to me, and I didn't quite catch it, and I said, I beg your pardon? And she said, "You're right." And I said, "I'm right about what?" She said, "I did have to read." And then she turned around and walked out. And situations like that, you help students to develop their skills and abilities, to realize the realities of classes and what they have to adjust to, and you see the adjustments, and those are wonderful. Those are great. Working with policemen for 15 years, they go off and have their career elsewhere, and I run into these folks all the time. This lieutenant from this place, this captain from this place, and so forth. Many times the names are long gone, but they remember me. They'll stop me on the street or whatever, and they'll say, "Here's what's happening in my life. I took your class 10 years ago or 15 years ago," or whatever. And those are just very rewarding experiences. People whose lives have been touched because of the curriculum, and you were a small part of that, and that's great.
What would you say is your most rewarding experience here at Yavapai?
Taken as a whole, it has to be working with students. In 34 years of doing that, you just build up a huge reservoir of experiences and great things. But the one project, I think, that was short in duration, but involved a significant time commitment, energy commitment, and so forth, was the time period between the year 2000 and 2003, when I was asked to co-chair the NCA self-study for the college in preparation for our evaluation in 2003. And that was a challenging, and it was a very intensive time, and I devoted my whole life to that 3-year experience, and felt that we did an outstanding job. It wasn't just me, it was the entire steering committee and the other co-chair, and the support that we got from the college community. We involved more than 130 employees at the college to help us prepare that self-study. And that'll probably be one of the key things that I'll always remember about my tenure here, is that major product, and feeling good about what we were able to do with that. And it was an outstanding study. Yes.
Do you feel that your experiences here have shaped who you are today?
Without a doubt, they've been influential. Whether they have been as significant as my family, my religious background, and so forth, I'm not sure. But Yavapai College has been a second family, really. And the wonderful people that I've worked with here have indeed been a significant influence on my life and my thoughts, my actions, and so forth. But without a doubt, when you spend that many years working with great, talented people, it does rub off on you.
So would you say it's been a pretty rewarding
Oh, absolutely.
experience?
Absolutely. It was one of the greatest decisions I made to accept a job here, and I wouldn't have gone anywhere else. It's been great. Yavapai College has been very good to me and my family, and so yes, very good decision.
And is there anything else you would like to say?
I wish my memory was better. I was reviewing a little bit today a file that I pulled out of memorabilia, and it was full of notes and cards and so forth from students, and full of pictures of faculty members that I'd worked with before, and administrators that I'd worked before, and staff members that I'd worked before, and I thought, this is just a wealth of memories and great things. Yavapai's provided all that for me, and I just am so fortunate to have been able to be here during this time period and to have participated in the whole thing. It has just been a blessing to me and to my family. I'm sure glad we made this choice, and I couldn't imagine it to have been any better. It's just been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
It's been my pleasure.